Welcome to the Forged in the Fires podcast with Fireman Rob, where resilience meets reality. Hosted by Fireman Rob, a firefighter, Ironman athlete, and mental health advocate. This podcast is your destination for stories that inspire, motivate, and ignite change. Each episode features incredible guests who face life's toughest challenges head on, sharing their journeys of courage, perseverance, and triumph. From first responders to world-class athletes to everyday heroes, these are the stories that remind us all of the strength we have within. Get ready to forge your own path, because here, we don't just overcome, we rise above. This is Forged in the Fires with Fireman Rob.
All right, welcome back to Forged in the Fires podcast. I'm your host, Fireman Rob. Today is actually going to be a great day. I've got a gentleman, entrepreneur, author, speaker, retired Navy SEAL. This is going to be a great interview. I'm excited to do it. This gentleman, he's going to be able to bring you insight into many different aspects of life. And I'm excited to just get into it. Let's just get into it. Marty Strong, great to have you on board today.
Hey man, thanks for having me, Rob.
You know, I go through your resume and I'm sitting here going, man, you've got a few things going on here. You haven't had a dull life. So I want to go back into being a combat decorated Navy SEAL. I want to go back into that because that's a huge mindset shift for a lot of individuals. So I want you to take me back to when you actually went into the Navy. What was the preface behind you going into the Navy?
Well, I went in the Navy to try to escape a real bad home life, divorced parents. My mom was a schizophrenic alcoholic, and two of my friends were going to join the Marine Corps. So I said, "Oh, what the hell? Why not?" And went to the enlistment center in the local mall in Omaha, Nebraska, and they had all the services represented there. It was on a Sunday, and two Marines in their dress uniforms, all their medals, Vietnam era guys, were there, and they showed us a film. And I'm seeing guys carrying big backpacks and going up these hills and all this stuff. And I'm like, my two friends were like all city middle linebacker types, and I was this little 125-pound guy. So I got up to go to the bathroom, couldn't find the bathroom. Navy recruiter sees me wandering around, says, "Hey, what are you looking for?" The bathroom. I said, "Yeah." So when I came back out, he was standing there waiting for me. And he says, "Hey, if you don't want to join the Marine Corps, give me a call." So it turns out the other two guys, one of them decided not to join the Marine Corps. One did 4 years as a all Marine Corps boxing champ.
Oh, wow.
I joined the Navy. I went to radar and air traffic control school for 17 weeks. And then there was a mistake in orders, and they sent me to SEAL training in California.
Wait a second, buddy. There was a mistake in orders? That's like that's a big order mistake.
Yeah. And it took me 8 years after I was a SEAL, I went back to be the senior enlisted guy of the first phase of SEAL training, which is where Hell Week and all the selection actually happens, where you weed everybody out.
Oh, wow.
And I was able to look at my records, my student records at that time. And then I saw the very first sheet in there, and it was a test that I took in boot camp. But I didn't go in there to take a test for the SEALs. I remember I was brought in there by our company leader, who was a Navy chief. He was trying to put together a swim relay team for a competition in boot camp. And about 5 of us raised our hands and said we all swam competitively, and he didn't know who was telling the truth. So he brought us to the pool. And when we got there was like 75 guys, and the pool was filled. There was people doing all kinds of stuff on the sides of the pool and everything. And he came back after a few minutes and said, "Look, I'm going to turn you over to that guy over there. He's going to let you guys swim next, but he doesn't want me to disrupt what he's doing here. So when he's done with you, come back to the company." So, an hour or so later, they told me to put my boots on, my pants, and my T-shirt, and it took me and 6 other guys out into the dark and told us that we were doing a timed 1.5 mile run, which we did. And according to my records, I passed by 2 seconds.
Oh,
and then we went back and filled out some paperwork on who we were, Social Security number and all that stuff. Nothing like, hey, do you want to be a SEAL? Nothing like that.
Right.
And then I went back to my company. Didn't think of it again. So it was a mystery to me until 8 years later when I went in there and I started putting the pieces together because I didn't even know what a SEAL was.
Wow. So somebody saw something in you never saw before in yourself.
I don't know. I think I was just one of 75. I mean, out of the 75, I think there was only two or
Wow.
three people that got through that whole test. So, yeah, and you show up at something like that in the beginning. In my case, my dad, who was a radar operator in the Korean War, just told me, go find a chief petty officer and he'll fix this for you. So I
Oh,
went out
wow.
there and I found a master chief Vietnam era guy, and he didn't fix it for me. He talked me into volunteering for SEAL training.
So now, how did you change? Because that's not an easy mindset shift to go into SEAL training. What was it like for you? Like the first week? Can you remember back to like what that kind of was? Because you didn't know what it was all about, anyways.
Well, I think I was more freaked out than anything because I didn't know what it was about, and everybody that think of it this way: you've got a training class. Usually, they start around 125 guys. The orders are kind of synchronized so that everybody shows up in a very small period of time, say 4 weeks. They
Okay.
pile you up in a barracks until they're ready to start your class. So I'm surrounded by people that are there because they want to be there and they know why they're there and they know what SEALs are and frogmen and all that.
Right.
And there's guys doing double nunchuck katas in the bathroom, and there's guys doing 500 push-ups. There's guys. I mean, everything you can imagine, almost like a movie cliche of guys that look like they should be in special forces. And then there was me. I was 18 years old, and I looked like I was 12, and I was 125 pounds, and so the more I heard how fired up everybody was, the more worried I got.
Yeah.
But so I didn't really have a lot of faith that I was going to be able to follow through. But I'll tell you what, the master chief that talked to me said, it was very nice. He said, you volunteer into the program, you volunteer out. So if you can't do it, you quit. And because you went through the special school, they're going to send you to a ship and you're going to end up being a radar guy, air traffic control guy, whatever. So
Right.
like a lot of these guys, you've already got a school, so you can go right to a good job if you quit. And so just remember, it's like sports. The coaches yelled at you, right? And you played football because he kind of asked me those questions. And I said, yeah, and so it's just like that. The instructors are like the coaches. They're yelling at you because they're trying to get you to do better. And I think it was the way he framed it that I approached it more like it was going into like like a football skills camp than it was a special operations training process.
Then it was a special operations crazy course. Yeah.
And I was
I
a
hear
really
you.
good swimmer. I had 8 years of AAU experience underneath me. And when my parents divorced, I ended up 2 years in Hawaii, so I learned how to surf. I've been around big waves. So I wasn't, some of the things that freaked everybody else out on day one of training, I wasn't freaked out about. So my strongest suits were basically being yelled at, being able to do, calisthenics, being able to swim really well, and not being afraid of the ocean. And that was enough to get me at least to Hell Week.
Wow. That's crazy. And now when you went back as a senior enlisted and for that Hell Week stuff, what was it like to see other people go through it and having known what it takes? What did it bring to be able, were you able to help those others through that, or like help them to see what the possibility was?
Well, I tell you what, everybody thinks they know what the training is all about, and none of us could really remember what we were thinking while we were going through it because it's too
True.
intense and it's too continually intense, especially that first 9 weeks. So you get flashes here and there of things that you remember. Then you're in the teams and so everybody's sharing basically partial memories and limited memories of what it was all about. So it's not like anybody's filling in the blanks for you.
Right.
You come back like I did, and I was actually so we had an officer in charge and then the chief E7 in charge, which was me. So my job was to run Hell Week. That was one of my core functions to schedule Hell Week, to figure out what we're going to do during each Hell Week, brief that to the commanding officer of the school, and then monitor, making sure everybody was doing what they were supposed to be doing through the whole week. And it was almost surreal being on the outside objectively watching it. The other thing that was surreal was I didn't realize how choreographed it was. Everything was choreographed. Everything was scheduled. Everything was micromanaged. Everything was ordered. Even the stuff where we'd give an impression it was like running an experience camp. Okay, we're going to tell them we're going to go on a 4-mile run, but we're actually going to go on a 12-mile run. But we're going to make it look like, and we have these big, extraordinary briefings, and there'd be teams positioned, 3 miles down the road, and all kinds of strange stuff just to mess with their minds.
Right.
Because you're trying to get them into a mind state that they can't control what's going to happen next. And the people that can handle that, handle it. And the people that can't handle that, quit. And I didn't realize it was done that way. I didn't realize that when some instructor acted like we'd done something and got mad and took us on a 13-mile run down to Mexico, that it wasn't because he was pissed off because we did something wrong. It was scheduled way in advance. They had trucks paralleling the beach on the roads and stuff. I mean, they had medical teams. I mean, and just a simple run down the beach for 4 miles, 2 down and 2 back, had a complete military style briefing. So that was something else, because I realized what it is it's a well thought out, and it goes all the way back to World War II, by the way, when they came up with this. The whole thing is really well thought out. It doesn't deviate much over time. Everybody's pretty much stuck to the same script in general, but you can change the modules around a little bit, just so that too much information doesn't get out and undermines the surprise of things. Right. But I realized it wasn't about helping us get through. It's not about training us to get through. It was about putting us in this experiential kind of crucible and sitting back and making sure there's a safety bubble around us while we just burn ourselves out and talk ourselves into quitting.
Wow. That's great. And when I look at some of the things that you talk about, like how to defeat the fear of failure in life and in business, that really speaks to kind of seeing both sides of that hell week. How did that really transition into you being able to have that ability to have the resilience from failure?
Well, and you hit the nail on the head. I mean, all the things I write about and I speak about, especially when I talk about the mindset or the methodology of how a Navy SEAL would handle crisis or difficult situations, it's more derived from those 2 years when I went there as an instructor at first phase than almost any other part of my SEAL career, because I could see it. I could see it in motion. I could see it on the faces of the students. I could watch them melt down. I could watch others kind of solidify. It was an amazing thing to watch. And I think what it did is it kind of codified in my own mind what must have been my core strengths. Because nobody explained it to you. They didn't get you on graduation day and show you a chart of all the things all the attributes and characteristics that you had. There was nothing like that. You just felt like you'd survived a shipwreck, and there was nothing special about it. Just that you happened to get to the edge of the railing and jumped off in time.
Right.
But looking back on it, and in the years after I was an instructor, I went back later as a lieutenant and had the third phase, which was land warfare tactics and weapons demolitions. But I was pulled into the Hell Week thing as an officer, shift officer, because they knew I had a lot of experience with Hell Week, and they wanted people that were going to, not try to deviate from the schedule and all that. And it just reinforced what I learned the first time. So, yes, one, it made me understand what it was about me that got me through the training. The second thing was, go ahead. The second thing was, it made me understand what the strengths were of the SEAL organization as a whole. That we had been tested at kind of an arm's length, and it was up to us whether we wanted to keep putting one foot in front of the other or not. So you really were, up until the point you graduate SEAL training, it's pretty much all you. It's whatever you brought to the table or whatever you discovered one day when you felt like you should quit and you decided not to. After you graduate BUD/S, everything after that is everybody in the brotherhood. Everybody's trying to train you and get you better every single day, and they're trying to improve you and challenge you and all that. But up until graduation, BUD/S is pretty much all on you.
Wow. So it's like, I was reading one of your articles about blank slate leadership, and like it's almost typical of what you're saying right there, is that everybody who's in Buds is a leader in their own opportunity or their own future. How does that correlate as you go through your career? Because you said like everybody's trying to help you, but how do you continue to have almost that blank slate leadership kind of idea to make yourself fit into new situations? So I think a lot of people have struggles, is like, oh, this is who I am. This is how can I fit into this leadership position?
So I guess there's two ways of looking at the blank slate thesis. One is, as a leader, if you've been assigned somebody, you should look at them like a blank slate, not on the negative side,
Right.
on the positive side, like glass full. Because what most people do, they carry their baggage of bad experiences with them. You know, they have trust issues with either other professionals or certain kinds of professionals. Like they never had an advertising person that didn't, lie to them and then get them in trouble later on. They didn't have the sales guy that didn't hype up what they could do and then not do it. And so they're
Right.
carrying around this bias. And basically, the way I would look at leadership, and this is kind of the way they did it in the SEALs, you show up, you're 100%. You're like you're your statue, and everything you do to change my opinion of you negatively, you're chipping away at your own statue. You're chipping away at that image I have of you. You come in and I think you're perfect. It's up to you to maintain that, and if it's degraded, it's on you, not me. So that's really what the blank slate leadership side was.
Right.
There's another angle to blank slate thinking, and that is clearing your mind. And again, it's about bias, trying to push aside all of your I guess experiences that are positive, or it gives you a sense of arrogance that you feel like you can accomplish things. You just keep winning, so you must just be able to keep winning. And the other thing is that you've been failing, and therefore you think you're going to keep failing. And so those two things that you got to clear your mind, start every challenge, decision, problem set that you're going to work on with a blank slate. Don't bring all that into it. So in one case, it's about people that you're leading, and in the other case, it's about your mind and the way you address problems.
And that leads perfectly into the 3 books that you've written. That I love. I love the titles of them because they're simplistic, but at the same time they're so powerful. The Be Different, Be Visionary, Be Nimble. I want you to talk to me more about like what was the process behind you choosing these 3, but at the same time, what was the process behind you implementing what you've learned? Because I think a lot of the things that you've done, I love how you put in, I'm only teaching you this because it's what I've done and what I've been able to accomplish from it. Talk to me more about those 3 books and the premise behind them.
So I'm a lifelong reader, learner, and I realized, as a young man that I was learning a lot more from people that actually had done whatever it was that I was trying to learn.
Yeah.
Think of it as like masters at their craft. And you get so much out of a classroom, and you get so much out of a webinar or a podcast or a book or an article. But there's really nothing that compares to sitting there at the knee of a master at any craft you want to think of, and absorbing that real information, that real experience. That's it's like it's like looking at a master carpenter, and you can see all the scars and the cuts all over his hands. He's made 1,000 mistakes before he made that first great piece of furniture, right? And that's kind of the way I look at this. I wrote Be Nimble first because I was helping. I've been a CEO for 13 years or so now. I was helping other people that were CEOs, presidents, business owners, business founders, and they were getting to certain stages in their business growth, and they were running into, the wall,
Right.
which really meant that they didn't know what they wanted to do from that point forward, or they didn't know how to scale. So if it's about scaling, it's more about operational thinking, and I know how to do that, and I would help them. But if it's about what do you want to be when you grow up, you kind of hit that kind of a wall, I'd spend a lot of time talking to them about what I thought was important, and what it wasn't so much my what I thought was important for me, but what I thought the elements and the categories that were important, that they had to check the boxes and answer the questions.
Right.
And I started doing that, I don't know, years before I wrote Be Nimble. And more people kept saying, you should write a book, you should put this stuff down on paper. So one day I just decided, okay, I'll do that. I'll just put it down on paper. I mean, I'd written at that point, I think 5 or 6 novels.
Wow.
So the writing process was something I was used to. And I thought, okay, what I want to do is I want to do it like I just explained to you. I want to do it like somebody who's actually been there, done that, has the scar tissue, and is not going to tell you everything's easy or here's the formula or the 1, 2, 3 steps to whatever.
Right.
I'm going to kind of interpose a business experience story, maybe a SEAL story that's relevant, prove the point, say make the point, give the story, prove the point, and then move on to the next topic in the book. And I address a lot of leadership things that unfortunately in the commercial world leadership isn't taught really, and where in the military it's taught all the time. It's part of the basic training. It's like knowing how to put on a uniform.
Right.
So I filled that gap. And one of the people that read my book was a CEO of a big company. He said, "Hey, you really hit the nail here." And I thought he was going to say because leadership isn't taught in college and all that. And he said, "You have a chapter on strategy. You could make a whole book out of that." Because nobody's taught strategy either.
Right.
They teach it in the Command General Staff College in the military, but they don't teach it in school, and they don't teach it in companies. You just, you do your time. Your tenure gets you to a point. All of a sudden, you're at the top of the organizational chart. You go, now you're supposed to lead something you weren't really taught how to do, and you're supposed to start thinking big picture things like the strategist, which is something you haven't been taught to do. And this is what he's telling me, right?
Right.
And I said, okay. So I tinkered around some outlines, and I ended up writing Be Visionary. But what I had to do in that one was kind of ask some of my friends that ran businesses and, about their experiences and what they thought the real shortcomings were. And how could somebody, jump from wherever they are, say they get to the top of that org chart and jump into the position of understanding strategy in a fairly quick time. And, you don't want to put them all the way back to the beginning and say they have to learn it like an apprentice. So that's what drove the second book. And then the third book that just came out, Be Different, it was all about curiosity and creativity and innovation and brain science and kind of a lot of things that I kind of learned about in the first 2 books and through the boards that I'm on and the companies that I run, that it was sad that so many people were coming into businesses or coming into organizations that I was directly familiar with, and very, very limited imagination.
Right.
Now, what I make the distinction of in the third book is it's not that they have limited imagination, it's that they've been basically trained and conditioned and kind of browbeat into not exercising their imagination.
Right. Be the same.
Yeah.
I want to ask because I love your other books, and it's that transition from what was the first book was Death Before Dawn. Like you've always had this affinity for writing, haven't you?
I think, it started with affinity for reading. I was, like I said, there was a lot of problems in my family, and I buried myself in books. And I think I always respected writers for that reason.
Yeah.
And also because, the more you read, usually the better you can write, because you have a certain pattern in your head, right? So I was a better writer than average in school, and I think that's the reason for it. And because of that, when I got into the military, I was a better writer than most of my peers. And I got pushed into the intelligence area of the SEAL team I was first sent to. And I was writing, mission scenarios, and I was writing intelligence analysis, and I was writing, and the officers were helping me and editing me and showing what I should be doing and how to make a point without being too blunt, or how to make a point where you walk somebody into a conclusion so you actually seal the deal. And so the more I wrote, the more people wanted me to write. So that's really kind of how it started. But then I put my pencils down and didn't really touch it after I got out of the military for a good, 7, 8 years, something like that.
Yeah.
And then I just decided one day, I think I really want to write a novel. I want to do that. And that's how I ended up writing the first one.
Is that what the process for writing your novel? Like, where did that start out from? Because that's got to be a daunting task looking at that.
It is, and I'll say it's daunting because all of everybody I've ever met, and I've helped a couple of buddies of mine get their books written and published. The daunting part about it is that you don't understand the process.
Yeah.
So it's really about the fact that it's an unknown challenge. You know, you if somebody came up to you and said, "Look, all you got to do is write one paragraph of 42 words a day, 7 days a week, and then in X number of days you're going to have 60,000 word first draft or an 80,000 word first draft." Now, that doesn't sound too daunting, right?
Right.
I mean,
until you sit down and do it.
Some people spend that much time just in the shower. So what's daunting is that you think, erroneously, you think that writers, one, were born with the ability to write and write well, and two, that they write continuously nonstop, morning, noon, and night until they finish the book. And they don't. They tend to toil over it over a long period of time, and they find a space in their day where they can put down as much as they can put down, and then they get back to it the next day. And I read a lot of books about this subject so I could understand it better. I mean, okay, but still, when you first sit down, there's that blank screen in front of you. You take the deep breath. The question that pops into your head, and it's the same question all my friends had when I asked them what's holding you back. And here's the question: who's going to care or give a shit about what I write?
So true.
I'm just me.
Yeah.
Who am I to feel so special that I'm going to write words down and somebody's actually spend any time to read them?
Wow.
And that's what freezes you. That's worse than writer's block, which is just not coming up with an idea for a while. This is you're not worthy.
That's a huge hurdle.
It is a hurdle, and it gets worse because the more you write, it's more and more nonfiction. The more you write, the more you realize what you're really doing is you're putting out there into the universe your thoughts, your ideas, your opinions, and your solutions, and it could fall flat as a bad joke.
Right.
And you don't know. You have no idea of knowing.
Yeah, and then so at the end of the day, like, you write it because you want to put that information out there, or you want to do it not for the ramifications or the accolades that accompany it, correct?
Yeah. So the first book, Death Before Dawn, I made a kind of a truce with my own brain. I said, look, I'm just going to write this for the fun of writing and to learn how to write, and I'm not going to get too serious about it. And because you have the same kind of trepidation with a novel, because you think, well, is the story going to be, too shallow, or the character is going to be too bland? And so I wrote that thinking that would be it. Check the box. And at the end of it, when it was getting ready to be published, I told the SEAL Veterans Foundation, hey, I'm going to donate all my novels, to you guys, and it's put it to good use in the PTSD program or something. They said, okay.
That's awesome.
Not knowing I was going to write 8 more. And, but the first one did really, really well. And even better than like monetary was the reviews.
Wow.
I mean, people were actually saying, hey, you know what you're doing. And they didn't say it that way, but you know what I mean? They liked the characters. They liked the storylines. They liked, so that motivated me to write the second, third, fourth, and I kept on going. And they're a lot more fun than the business books, by the way.
Than the business one. I can only imagine it. And you drew a lot from your experiences. You drew a lot from the things that you've seen and know in those books, right?
Yes, absolutely. The SEAL series, it's about a young officer, and he evolves until eventually he's out of the military and he's doing other things. That's not based on my life, but it's based on a lot of my experiences, direct experiences, especially the first 2 books. I had to do with combat and in uniform. And then the next 3 books where he's out of uniform, I was interviewing like a SEAL that's running operations against human traffickers. because it's about human traffickers. And
Oh, wow.
and so I took notes like I was a reporter. And I
Yeah.
heard all about that terrible world or industry.
Ugh.
And then I went in the time travel side. I had just received my black belt level in Muay Thai. I think it was 54 or something like that. And I decided I was going to put in the SEAL ethos, the feeling of brotherhood and kind of combat camaraderie and all that, and pour that into a different context. So I put it into the future, and they time travel back to Time Warrior sagas. They time travel back to either the Bronze or the Iron Age.
Oh, wow.
And they have to learn how to fight. So it's like MMA. They have to go to a center. They have to train in the weapons, in the style. They have to go through all these fighting tests. They train on holographic, like AI-driven trainers
No kidding.
that know all your weaknesses. And then they eventually have to fight a master, and then the master clears them for the trip. And so I had a lot of my SEAL stuff in there. I had a lot of martial arts stuff in there. Had a lot about physical fitness, advanced supplementation. I mean, all kinds
All
of stuff.
sorts of things.
Yeah, I poured everything I had into that one too.
Oh my God, that's so awesome. You can make sure you go to martystrong.com. You can find out more. There's so much stuff that you have. I mean, I love the information that you have out there. Actually, it's martystrong.com. You can find out all of his books. You can find out more about his speaking, as well as he has a podcast that he's been on as well. Marty, such an amazing story, and definitely keep writing, because I actually just ordered the books this morning. So just so you know, the 5 series. But I love what you're doing. Make sure you go to martystrong.com. Marty, I always end the same way with 3 questions. Are you ready for those 3 questions?
I think so.
Come on, you've been talking about confidence the whole time. All right, here we go. If you could go back to your 18-year-old self and give yourself one piece of advice, what would that be?
Never quit and keep learning.
I love it. Now, if everybody's going through challenges and struggles in their life, if you could give them 2 tips or 2 things that they could incorporate into their daily life to continue to move forward, to continue to thrive, what would those 2 tips be?
The first tip would be to take about 10 minutes each day. I do it in the morning, and visualize yourself a year from now, and then eventually you can push it out to 2 years, even 3 years. Visualize how you want yourself to be, and if you're a professional, what do you want to look like as a professional? And if you own a company or a business, what do you want your company or business organization to look like? Do that every day for about 10 minutes, and you'll start to get very, very comfortable with kind of zooming out and putting everything in every day's to-do list and challenges that come at you and opportunities in context.
Right.
The second thing would be intellectual humility. I think that most of us carry so much baggage, and I deal with a lot of people that are very successful, but they'll admit that if somebody walks in with a problem, they're going to immediately reach back into their toolbox and pull out some football play that's been working for them, rather than actually sit back quietly and absorb reality for a minute and then realize maybe this is a different situation. Right. So intellectual humility would be my second tip. We talked about it earlier a little bit in the discussion. Clear your mind of all your negative and positive baggage. Take a deep breath and just listen to what the information is all about before you start making a decision.
I love that. All right, this last one's actually kind of interesting, because if you could have coffee at a firehouse table, so in other words, no questions off the table, everybody's going to ask and answer whatever they want, with 3 people, they can be deceased or alive, who would those 3 people be?
I'd say Jesus, my dad, and my oldest son, who passed away, by the way. That's why I put him at the table.
Oh, I love that. Then, can you elaborate more on that? Because we're not going to end it quick right now, but I want you to elaborate, because that was a big psychological thing for you to get past that death of your oldest son.
Yeah, he was in the Air Force. He did a tour in Iraq. He came back He was set up for a second tour in Iraq, and he was killed in an ice storm when he was driving like 9 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday out in Kansas and returning to his base. So he was 22 years old. And yeah, so if I had those three people there, one, I'd ask my dad. My dad never talked. I'd want to know all the things that, I don't even know what his favorite color was. I'd ask him 1,000 questions that have come up since he's passed.
Yeah.
I'd probably ask Jesus to see what he could do about bringing my oldest son back.
It doesn't hurt to ask. Doesn't hurt to ask.
I'd just love to have a cup of coffee with my son, Mike, just to see how things would go.
I love it. I love it. Marty, it's such an honor to have you on today, and I appreciate everything you're doing. Make sure you go to martystrongbenimble.com, find out more, get a book that you can read and educate yourself and get better person just like you, Marty. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Rob.
All right, folks. We'll talk to you next time.
Thanks for listening and supporting the Forged in the Fires podcast with Fireman Rob. Remember, don't forget to like and subscribe to this podcast. And please share this episode with a friend or family member. To find out more about Fireman Rob, or if you have a question, go to www.firemanrob.com. Until next time, live your life forged in the fires.